Welcome to the Transform Your Wedding podcast, a how-to guide for taking your wedding to a whole new level. Here's your host, Marie Kubin from Rent My Wedding.
Hey everyone, this episode is all about venues and decor. So when it comes to booking your wedding venue, it's really important to first stop and think about your vision for your big day. This includes the style of the wedding along with any major decor elements. And it's important to think about that so that you can select a venue that fits into that vision and that allows the type of decor that you have in mind. So we'll go over all of the decor considerations that go into selecting the best wedding venue. I'll be chatting with Julie Roth Novak, the co-founder and CEO of Party Slate. Party Slate is a website that provides inspiration and connects couples with leading event professionals and venues. Hey, Julie. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm a fan. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, well, you are the queen of venues, so I can't wait to hear all of your advice about picking the right venue for your decor vision.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest decisions you'll make for your event, and we have over I think 8,000 venues featured on Party Slate. And actually, after planning about 50 of our own corporate events, I feel like I am an expert at picking out venues. So many things to think about.
Absolutely. So for couples who are just getting started, do you recommend that they should think about their overall vision for the wedding first before picking their venue, or does the venue come first? Which order?
Absolutely. You need to think about what type of event and what your vision is for the wedding. The most important thing to think about is how many people you plan to have at your event. And so I know that sounds like, of course, you'll know that number, but actually, when people first get engaged, sometimes they actually don't have their list together and they think they're going to have 100, but when they actually put their list together, it's more like 200 or 175. So really the first key thing you need to do is, the two people getting married need to come to an agreement on what their guest count is going to be, because without that number, I don't care what vision you have, you're not going to be able to pick the right venue that's suited for your number. So I think that's the first thing you need to do. And again, I know it's obvious, but even creating a Google sheet with your list that helps you estimate, what you think your guest count's going to be, it's going to be really hard without that to start looking.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And a lot of times too, I think that you might have a number in your head of what you think your guest count is going to be, but when you actually start to write down all of those names, it
Yes.
could be way more people than you imagine it was going to be. Maybe it's way less. So I think that's such a good point. You really
And talking
don't
to
know.
parents and other, I call them stakeholders, very important, because you might have this vision for what you want for your wedding, but you might be getting help, paying for the wedding, and there'd be other people, and it is not the easiest thing to think through guest count. So that's the first most important thing, and then after that. Again, this is a really obvious thing, but very hard to do, is to triangulate on the date. And so it's really hard to pick just one date as you're looking for a venue, because you don't know if that date is already taken. So really, you do need to think about 2 or 3 dates that don't work for everyone on your list, but that work for the core stakeholders. And I know I sound like a business geek talking about that, but the people that you need to have your wedding, your friends, your close family, finding that date that isn't a kid's graduation or another milestone, or something that is already on the calendar, that's really important. So then after you have your date, I would recommend 2 or 3. Then you want to start thinking about the vision for your event. And again, you don't have to know all the answers, but do you envision a luxury, hotel experience where everyone's from out of town and they're at a hotel? Do you envision a rustic, chic, raw space? Is an outdoor wedding really important to you? So it's important to have some sort of vision of what you want your special day to be, to narrow the list of venues. Because I know many people are like, hey, I'm just going to look at hotels. Many people are like, you know what, this is the look I have in mind. So what's going to best suit that look? And what we found at Party Slate is people like to envision what their event could look like at the venue. So if it's a wedding or a 50th birthday party or a corporate event, it's important for them to see, and that's what we provide on the profile page, is all different ways you can transform a space. Even a hotel ballroom, you might think, oh, it's just a boring hotel ballroom. You can, depending on, this very well, draping and lighting, you can really transform a raw space into your vision, but you have to have at least a spark of what that vision is to narrow your list for what venue is right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great thing to keep in mind is either having that blank slate where you're going to be able to bring in the decor to do what you want,
Yeah.
or picking a venue that's already going to have part of your vision in mind. So if you want that rustic chic, like you're saying, maybe you're not looking at hotel ballrooms at all. You should look for, country venues or freestanding venues, maybe a barn. So I think it's so important, like you said, to think about what you want that vision to look like and then plan
Yeah.
your venue accordingly.
Absolutely, because part of the venue is going to be your decor. So, like the
Mhm.
ceilings, the floors, how the space looks, how people enter. What is the other things you should think about is, parking, valet. And I know it's a long list. We actually wrote a blog entry. I'll send it over to you on the things to consider when picking out a venue. But you do need to at least write a list of requirements on what you need. And maybe it's only 6 or 7 things, but you need to make sure that when you're looking at, a lot of people research online. Again, a lot of people come to Party Slate, a lot of people go to Yelp, a lot of people go to a lot of different sources through Google. But you're going to do your online research first, not to be like, this is the venue I'm choosing, but to create a short list. And so I really recommend thinking about 5 to 7 venues that can be in your short list. Half of those won't be available, right? So then your list is going to get smaller. And then you're going to want to go, if you can, visit the venue. If you're doing a destination event, you might count on, looking at photos online and calling the venue and things like that if it's a smaller event. But 9 times out of 10 for your big day, you're going to want to visit the venue before you make that commitment.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that there's a lot to be said about going there in person and kind of see how that venue makes you feel. Is it the
Yeah.
vibe that you're going for? Because a lot of times it can be completely different in pictures than it is in real life too. So I think that's a really good tip to actually go in person if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, getting an idea of what your type of event could look like there is something that we found, again, in our research process on Party Slate, that people, even if it's a different type of event, they want to see how the room can be transformed. And so if you save a few ideas, whether it's on Party Slate or a Pinterest board or your Instagram or whatever, on things that you're looking for, and when you go visit the venue, can you picture it looking that way? I think that's really important. So you got your short list of dates, you have your guest count, and I know guest count always changes, but you need to have a rough, order of magnitude on the guest count. You have this picture of what feel you want, even if it's like kind of like a mood board of a feel, and then creating that short list of venues in the location that you're looking for is kind of that step to creating the short list. Then when it comes to booking, the additional things like the details around food and beverage. Do they allow outside caterers? Is it, mandatory that you have to use someone on their preferred list? Of course, the budget question comes in. What is your set aside budget for venue? And of course, you usually end up spending more than your set aside budget, but at least some concept of budget is really important because you can't just think about the venue costs. So for example, if a venue has preferred caterers, you need to think through what the catering costs are. And then again, you need to have a set aside budget for decor. So you have to put the whole thing together. You can't just make a venue decision without thinking about the whole picture. Some venues don't even charge that much for the fee, but they require you to use their caterer. So everyone gets paid somehow. So you need to look at the full picture of what your expenses are going to be and make sure it's a good fit.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, and especially because I know I see figures out there that the venue and the catering accounts for something like 50% of your overall wedding budget. So it's such a huge part of your big day and where you're spending your money. So definitely want to stop and think about all these different things before you go ahead and just see a venue, love it, and book it, and you maybe didn't ask all the questions or find out all the details.
Yeah, and we're actually working with celebrity planner Mindy Weiss on creating this really great wedding checklist on things to consider. And one of those things to consider is really, it can be very simple, but a high level budget of what you have to spend and what percentage of that budget goes towards food and beverage, towards venue. And sometimes in the case of a hotel, it's the same bucket. Decor, I always tell people not to forget about lighting because lighting can really make or break. That is kind of part of the decor budget, but you need to think about lighting. And then of course there's invitation, dress, other things, styling that needs to go into it. So it's such a, no, so many people have not planned a wedding before. And so just get as much help as you can from the experts that have done it. And if you don't have a planner, there's so many free resources online. Google will be your best friend, and it's really important to do your research so that you're educated on what it's going to take, because it can be stressful. It can be stressful to plan a big event.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another thing that just came to mind, I know what you do on Party Slate is you have so many photos of the venues where you can really see what you're getting that way. So if you are a couple that, let's say you're on a budget, maybe you're going to have to go with a traditional banquet hall. One thing I love too is that if you actually go and look at real weddings that have been done at that venue and just seeing how they've done the decor and the different styles and the themes. And I found a lot of venues can look completely different depending on the wedding that was there and the decor that they use. So
Absolutely. You can really transform a room through, again, lighting, floral, how you do the dance floor. There's so many things you can do that at every budget level that can transform that space. And so I think it's hard to imagine when you walk into an empty room, what it's going to look like. And so what we try to do on Party Slate is we created kind of a portfolio sharing platform. So a venue can create a profile page and share all of their event photos. Typically on Instagram, they have one or two and they have not the full event. So you can't see the full transformation of the room. So we kind of complement Instagram and complement their website, but create this really rich portfolio sharing tool to see, here's the birthdays we've done, here's the weddings we've done, here's the corporate events we've done, and look at how different the room looks with these different transformations. And so I think that helps people kind of loosen their idea of like this blank space on what it could look like for their wedding.
yeah, definitely. I think that totally opens up all the possibilities because, yeah, if you see just that room, it may not be at all what you're envisioning for your wedding, but then go ahead and look at the actual weddings that have taken place there. And there's a good chance you might find something that's way more in line with what you're thinking, but it needs decor to get it to that place.
Yeah. And so on Party Slate, you can pick, are you looking for a barn, a vineyard? Are you looking for a raw space? Are you looking for a hotel? So there's beautiful restaurant spaces for people doing smaller weddings. So there's so many different options out there. So narrowing the list, you don't have to decide for sure right up front, but if you have your guest count and you have your date and you have some vision of what you want, you can narrow that list again to 7 to 10 different venues. And then when you go for your visit, you really need to ask questions again about cancellation policy, especially due to pandemic. There's a lot of flexibility in cancellation policies right now, but you really need to understand what that is. You need to ask about food and beverage because that's one of the biggest drivers of your cost. And then you also want to know the different event spaces that they have. Do they have an area for the couple to get ready? Do they have an area for a reception, or are they going to convert the room from the ceremony? Is the ceremony going to be there, or is the ceremony going to be at a church or a synagogue and then the reception's there? So all those things you need to think about. And again, the venue manager should really help you think those through. But I always think a smart buyer going in with 10 questions to ask will make it a more kind of fair, transaction, because you're coming in smart. Just like when you go buy a car, you want to do your research in advance. You kind of want to do your research so that you go in prepared to ask those questions. And I think especially on contract requirements, parking, what's included, do they have any tables and chairs, or all the rentals have to happen? All those things will help you better plan for a budget and also help you compare venue A to venue B.
Definitely. Now, of course, there's a long list of questions to ask the venue before you book, but how about those decor specific questions? Let's say, maybe you have your heart set on millions of candles everywhere, different
Yes.
things. What are the kind of decor specific questions to
I
ask?
think the main thing you want to know is, are there any restrictions as far as decor? So some venues can't do ceiling decor. Some venues can't have candles. Some venues have, very strict capacity. I mean, most of them have capacity. So again, that's an important thing to ask. But I always like to ask, what questions aren't I asking that I should be asking? And I think that helps the salesperson, the venue rep kind of think like, many people ask us about this, you didn't ask this. So I think that's a good open-ended question to ask. And then, again, you hopefully have a good venue rep that's really going through it. They want you to find the right solution. They don't want surprises. They don't want to have a got you and unhappy couple that's going to put a bad review. So hopefully you have someone that's really walking you through what those things are. But again, come in with 10 questions, at least prepared, so that you can really be proactive to make sure you didn't miss anything. But I think the key is, what are the restrictions on decor? They know what their list is, and typically it's not that long. There aren't a lot of restrictions, but another thing you want to know is like load in, load out times. And again, if you do have a planner, they'll help you with that. But if you're doing it yourself, I know those are things like you're probably not even thinking about, but how early can they load in? When do they have to load out by? And those are the type of things that the venue person should really be able to help you with.
Yeah, I think that's another great point too, because you might have this vision for an over the top wedding and you need a full day to get it all set up. But the venue may say, hey, you've got 2 hours in the morning and that's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't expect that you'll get the whole day before. There's usually another wedding booked before you.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And usually they're pretty flexible about, like, early morning, they can start loading in, but it just depends on what venue, what type of venue. Restaurants are different than raw spaces that are different than hotels. And so you need to understand some of those high level requirements that the venue have. And sometimes they have like a PDF, or it should be on their website. But again, go in prepared. We also, on our profile pages on Party Slate, now allow venues to put frequently asked questions. That's not only good for search engine optimization, like question and answer format Google really likes, but they know those top questions they get asked. And by putting the answers on their profile page, maybe you go in there with only 5 questions because their FAQs on the profile page answered a lot of those questions on, can I bring in my own caterer? What are the decor requirements? Load in times, things like that. So I'm sure there's always more to talk about, but the smarter you can be before you go into that venue, I think the better chance you're going to find that perfect place for your wedding.
Definitely. I totally agree. So now you obviously see so many venues. I mean, you probably see more venues than anyone out there. So
Yeah.
I wanted to pick your brain a little bit and just see what's your favorite type of venue? What's maybe the favorite decor that you've seen at venues? Give us your kind of
Oh my God,
insights.
I could talk all day about this. So I personally, this is my own personal view, I like kind of more of the modern, contemporary, kind of sleek look. And so I tend to like kind of some of the raw spaces that have that more contemporary, modern feel. That's just my own perspective. I know many people that like that very rustic chic, kind of all wood, vintagey feel. And there's so many amazing venues that have that. And then others, I think from a hotel perspective, I have a lot of out of town family. I live in Chicago. And so for my wedding, I did get married at a hotel because I wanted it to be like almost like a retreat. Like everyone's in the hotel, we're meeting for breakfast, and there wasn't a lot of buses going from place to place. That particular for people that have all out of town family, and even friends, I do think there's advantages to having it at a hotel. And in some cases, you can do the rehearsal dinner at the hotel and the brunch at the hotel, and maybe you do go off premise for the wedding itself. So there's so many choices, but I think the most important thing I can tell people is to really have a good sense of what you expect, you and your partner, for your day, and getting those upfront requirements, and really researching those questions. That will really help you, find that right place.
Definitely. Well, those are some great tips. Anything else you want to share when it comes to just generally finding venues?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I said before is just do your homework. I love Google Sheets, and just create a Google sheet of what your requirements are, what you're looking for, and also I know people are considering destination weddings. I know for my wedding, I really wanted a destination wedding. That was my vision. That's what I wanted to do. But when I really started researching destination wedding, and I knew my wedding count had gone way higher than I wanted it to be, I started to realize that it wasn't practical to do the size of wedding I want to do. And so, although that dream was a little crushed, I quickly moved into that new vision. And I think having that flexibility to change paths as you get smarter about what the alternatives are. And, you also have to think about what are you going to want your guests to have to spend to come to your wedding. So when you do a destination, you're not flying everyone out there. And so you're going to think about flights and hotels and other things. And so you really have to think about the whole picture and just be open to that changing as you get smarter on the process.
Yeah, I think that's great advice too, because that's
Yeah.
one thing I also learned with my wedding. I wanted a destination wedding as well. And then it's like you crunch the numbers and you think about the logistics. Like, do I want to be outside getting sweaty and having the sun in my eyes while I'm trying to look really cute for the pictures,
Yes.
So
It's funny you say that because I thought the same thing. Like, I don't want to have like sunglasses on at my wedding, and I don't like it when it's bright and I have my makeup on. And I'm like, maybe I don't want this destination, and I think it's okay for your vision to change. That's why it's so important to have the time to really look into it. And, you can always do a renewal of vows for down the road and have, 10 people go on a destination. You didn't get to do your destination wedding. And for others, they, especially during COVID, they decided, I'm going to just do 10 people and I am going to go to a beautiful resort in, Cabo or, whatever, wherever it is. And maybe have a party in a couple of years. Maybe, you know what I mean? Some people are having babies really quickly and they have a party later. I think COVID has really said, you know what, there are no rules of what's right and wrong anymore. You may have a Thursday night wedding because your venue's booked. You might have a Sunday night wedding. I think anything goes. I think we're just going to be so excited to celebrate together that it's all rules are off the table.
Yeah, you are so right on with that. I think that's the one great thing to come out of the pandemic is that
Yeah.
it's totally opened it up for weddings. You can do what you want, just be
Yep.
you, celebrate, enjoy it. And, I just love that that's the direction we're going in with the wedding industry right
Yeah,
now.
and more on Party Slate, we're seeing people post, event professionals post really incredible hybrid events where you have 20 people in the room and grandma and grandpa that couldn't fly or worry are on either a Zoom or kind of an advanced Zoom where they can be part of the celebration. And we think these hybrid events are going to really continue for quite some time and maybe never go away. So maybe you can't go to that charity event that you're really vested in, but you can be part of it for an hour to see the keynote and give online and be part of it and get a gift. Instead of your swag bag, you're getting a gift bag at home. Or there's a lot of ways you can be connected to a cause or an event without being there. And I think that's going to continue even after this pandemic is long gone.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Julie, tell us more about yourself and your company.
Yeah, so I am, interestingly enough, people think I'm a like veteran event professional. I'm a digital marketing geek. So I have 20 years of digital agency experience working with some of the biggest brands in the world on their digital presence and their branding and social media and websites. And I have always loved events since my first party in 7th grade and love bringing people together and connecting them and inspiring them. And there's nothing I like to do more than connect people to a cause, through a fundraiser or celebrate employees through a corporate event or, even my own wedding. I love events and I always have. And so in planning years and years of fundraisers and corporate events and even my own wedding, I kept looking for new ways to get inspired. It was before Pinterest and even before Instagram. And there were a lot of wedding blogs and there were a lot of, people talking about weddings and kind of, a lot of them were, oh, this is the site for rustic chic weddings, or this is the site for luxury weddings. There wasn't this kind of place to go to get inspired for all kinds of events. I redesigned my kitchen. I used a website called Houzz, Houzz, which is an incredible home decor site that I'm obsessed with. And it struck me with all my digital experience. I'm like, this is what I need in the events world. This is exactly it. So that was like 10 years ago. So it took me about 5 years to get up the courage to quit my job and start Party Slate. And so my vision for Party Slate was really, this is a place to get inspired, to get new ideas for all kinds of events, not just weddings, and find leading caterers and event professionals and event planners to bring your vision to life. And so sure, we have a lot of people that just look for ideas on Party Slate, but we also have people that are looking for a venue, and we don't take any transaction fee. We don't we are just an inspiration source. How we make money is event professionals can pay just like on Yelp and Houzz and others for an elevated presence. And also we will manage their profile, like white glove photo posting. A lot of people are very busy in this industry. And so the vision was really almost a house version minus the e-commerce for the events industry. And that's really what we set out to build. And so today we have about 15,000 event professionals and venues that share their work on Party Slate. And we had about 800,000 people visit the site last year. And we're hoping to double, triple this year with the world opening back up again.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely such an amazing resource. I love Party Slate. And I remember when it was first starting,
Yeah.
I was thinking like, this is amazing. This is exactly what we need.
Thank you so much. And it's really hard, as you know, to do your own company and to do a startup. But if you really believe in the vision and you have a great team, because trust me, my team is much smarter than I am, and you're working towards this common goal, we truly believe kind of inspired events inspire people. And you can tell right now, without being together, we are craving being back together. And I really think events are going to get bigger and bigger, both, wedding, but also corporate as well. With social media amplification, a lot of these corporate events have become like a form of advertising, right? So you see like what the Kardashians are doing with their, they could do a 20-person event and it becomes a, $100 million ad campaign for a perfume or for makeup. So events have a way to inspire people that aren't even there through social media, and now through kind of this hybrid connection where people can feel like they're there without even being there.
Yeah, absolutely. So last thing, tell us where we can find you online and on social media.
Absolutely. So we're just at partyslate.com. So it's party and slate. Many people ask me, what does the name mean? I really felt people could come in with a blank slate and fill in their ideas and their event professional team, through Party Slate. So that's kind of the original concept for it. And then on Instagram, we do have a really spectacular Instagram. It's just at Party Slate. Those are the two best places. And our newsletter is very popular. So when you get on our website, you can register and get our newsletter as well.
Awesome. Well, Julie, thank you so much for sharing all this great advice. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
So great talking to you too.
Well, I hope you enjoyed learning all of these tips about selecting the best wedding venue. And don't forget, you can catch all of our podcast episodes over at transformyourwedding.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.
This podcast is brought to you by Rent My Wedding, your one-stop shop for event rentals. Order online and rentals are delivered right to your door. Shipping is free both ways nationwide. Rent lighting, backdrops, photo booths, and more. With the most 5-star reviews in the industry, Rent My Wedding makes rentals easy and affordable. Book your rentals today at www.rentmywedding.com.